Okay, so this is, of course, Physik, and I'm not German, but und simulation. Is it pronounced like that? I guess so. Maybe simulation or something. Right, or physics and simulation in English, right? I'm Alex Rose, your host for the evening or morning. Good morning, everyone. I know it's a bit rough as well to wake up at this time of day and start doing physics, but it is what it is. So hopefully I'll try and keep it entertaining for you. Who am I? I'm an indie games developer. My background's in physics. I have a physics degree. So I'm worried about scaring you by going too quickly. So I'll try and pace the course in a way that I won't overwhelm you all, because like I have a full working knowledge of this stuff already, and I'm not sure at what level you'll be at because you're all master's students. This is the game I made. Oh wait! I need to share screen. Well, that would work, wouldn't it? That helps. Okay. By the way, if anyone wants to just like, can someone just confirm that it's not going horribly wrong yet? Can someone just like say hi and like, yeah, we can see your screen. Okay, it's nice to hear you all. Right. Okay, so this is my game. It's called Super Rubo Resurrection, and you can see it's very physicsy. There's lots of moving parts. It's just a platformer. There's rockets that go around, pendulums that swing, things fall, projectile motion, lasers, torsion, and rotation. We've got Galilean relativity here, moving platforms. You can jump on your corpses here, and it makes the game easier if you die. And you can push those corpses around. They have masses. Stuff gets pulled and pushed. And even if you look here, at the end of this, there's a logo. And the logo, I never use Unity Animator. I animate this with physics as well. You can see like there's small rumbles and stuff like that. And to me, you get a much more like natural, fluid feel when you make games like this. So I heavily rely on physics in everything I do. I'm currently working on a game called Recompile for PS5 and Xbox. Now, I didn't write the character controller for this, but I did the hard bits that the devs couldn't do. So like moving platforms. When you're in 3D space, you get all these fake forces like centrifugal force and you just get all out of a rotational frame, Coriolis force. You get these extra forces and they need to be added. And like when you run up a slope, sometimes you want to run down when it's really steep, and sometimes you don't. So there's a lot of little things you need to do, and that's basically what I do there. So that's a bit of my background, but let's dive right in. So let me just get my full whiteboard up. Cool. Right. So physics. The first of all, we're starting off with dynamics, right? Well, we're not starting off. This topic is essentially dynamics, which is one small part of physics, because physics contains, quantum physics, optics, astronomy, but all of these different fields of physics are made up of this field dynamics. This is the most basic, purest form of physics, essentially. It was largely invented, like Isaac Newton basically gifted us dynamics. He wrote his Principia, and he taught us just a ton of stuff that no one before him had ever figured out, and just moved science forward a huge amount. But even when we think of things like chemistry, when you've got temperatures, that's just the motion of small particles, vibrating. And when they vibrate a lot, you have a high temperature. And so everything is based on dynamics, and dynamics is just the motion of particles, right? If I didn't say that before. Hello. Great. Thank you, screen. Right? And what in physics we normally put these together with dynamics and relativity. Okay, so we are going to touch on relativity, but this is how you know, like Einstein separated normal Newtonian physics from you know, and made it work in the real world. So when you start to go at really fast speeds, Einstein fixed this with relativity. We're going to talk about a type of relativity, and if we get really far in the course, eventually we're going to touch on special relativity if we can, but if not, it's fine. Let me just, before I continue, make sure that everyone is this Zoom call. Yeah, I think there's no one waiting. Okay, if there is, well.
I'm not in the Zoom call. I'm with Beate. So she's next to me. I'm John.
Okay.
We share the same computer.
Okay, cool. Right. I was just wondering if anyone was stuck in a waiting room, but it looks like it's fine. Okay, cool. So there are. Okay, when it comes to, before we start anything, we have to define the basis for physics, right? And the basis for dynamics is space and time. Okay, and space. Okay, there's two ways of looking at this. There's absolute and relative. And what absolute means is that this is how it works in Unity, for instance, right? I have an origin, and everywhere I can chart, like I can say we have a position of 3, 5, 4, you know, like this. And it's an absolute point, and when we load the scene, it will always be there. And then there's the relative way of looking at things, and then that's sort of like we have a transform, and we have a child of it, and it has a local position, right? And that local position is not its absolute position, it's the position relative to its parent. So even in absolute frames, you always have relative frames. And you had, there were Aristotle and Newton believe firmly that our universe itself is absolute. And Einstein believed, as well as Galileo, believed that everything's relative. And the way you can see that, and we're going to start a bit abstract, and then we're going to get into like how this relates to games. But if you imagine, say, the corner of your room, right, you might say, oh, this is a fixed point in space, right? This is always the same. If I go away and come back in a week, obviously, assuming my house doesn't burn down within that time, that point is going to remain in the same place, right? But it's not actually true, because if you imagine, you know, your house is sitting on the surface of the Earth, and the Earth is spinning pretty fast. I think you're moving 450 meters a second, something like that, if you're at the equator. If you're at the North Pole, then you're barely moving because it's just rotating around like this. But if you're on the equator, you're moving very quickly, you know. And then your house is here, and then Earth is moving through space, and that's moving at something ridiculous like 10,000 meters a second, or 30,000 even. I don't remember the exact number, but you can look it up yourself, but Earth moves pretty fast. And so you can't look at our solar system and find a fixed point in space. So then you might say, well, you know, you've got the Milky Way, and in here we could say, oh, the center of the Milky Way, the center of this black hole, this is a fixed space. But then the Milky Way is moving away from every other galaxy, and everything's moving away from everything else. Everything's accelerating away from everything else as well. And that's why there's stuff like redshift, but we're not going to go into that. But what this means is that we can't experimentally prove that our universe is absolute. And we also can't prove this for time, right? Because you may have a clock, and your clock might be different to my clock, right? And at the time of Newton, accurate clocks really didn't exist. That's more of a recent discovery. But Newton really believed in his heart that time was absolute. And then Einstein came along and kind of ruined everything, because if you happen to be on Earth and then in space there's a satellite and you have a really accurate atomic clock in there, then it turns out that the satellite, when it moves fast, time moves slower. So this clock goes slower than this one on Earth. Okay, and the faster you go, the more that's true. That if you go at the speed of light, you essentially like stop moving through time. So it then becomes hard, because you have your brother in space and you're on Earth and you're twins, but then they move fast and now you're not the same age anymore. Like things like that can happen in our universe. So it's hard to say that time is relative, and it's hard to even say what time is. The easiest way is to say it's a change in entropy, and entropy is the amount of order in our universe. So if you've got like if you've got a sand castle on a beach, eventually the sea will wash it up and it'll be destroyed. Things destroy. Life happens and then life dies, and that's the march of entropy. Like, it will come for us all. Every skyscraper that's built, it will crumble. Like, entropy, you can clean your bedroom, but then it won't stay clean for long. And the effort you put in to clean it up will actually increase the entropy of the universe. So as you go forward in time, and this is some fun fact about time travel you might not know, people like to imagine going back in time. Now, physics allows you to do, like, all the laws of physics, like gravitation, work the same forward and back in time, except one, the weak force. But that's nuclear physics. We don't need to care about that. What happens is, if you're moving forward through time and then you time travel backwards, right? If this is entropy, entropy will actually still go up. So even if you go back in time, you can't change the past. This past is lost. You'd just go in the opposite direction and things would still seem to move forward to you. So we can't even really define time very well. But luckily, we're in a game engine. And in a game engine, we can define time very, very easily. In fact, we have a great function called time since it is, what is it even called? Time since first load. We got something like that. And you got time.time, but time.time, that will give you, one will give you the time when you open the scene. One of them will give you it's called real time. You've got time real time since startup, and that is useful for, like, say you've got a pause menu. In the pause menu, you set time to 0. You turn your time off. Then you can still have rotating elements and stuff, because you can just base them on the time since startup. So that's in game engines, we're very blessed that everything we work with is not special relativistic, because it's not moving that fast, and also, even if it were, we don't care. I mean, you can make something go faster than the speed of light in a game engine and it won't break. You won't be able to see it because it's too far away immediately. But we're very blessed that we don't have to worry about lots of these things, and so everything becomes a lot easier. So the only thing we really need to worry about to start, before anything, essentially, right, what I'm going to do is, I know some of you have probably studied physics before, and you've definitely studied maths. Part of teaching dynamics is, at the beginning, I have to just teach you a bit of maths that you've probably done 200 times, but I need to make sure that you know it and you're aware of it. So hopefully this won't bore you, but if it does, don't skive the next lectures because it will actually get harder. Like it's not all gonna be, or maybe you'll find this supremely difficult. We'll see. I don't think so, but right. In this universe, we have scalar quantities and vector quantities, right? And scalars are things like mass, okay? Things like volume, temperature, right? These are quantities, so they're things you can measure. It's not just like, I like this, or like, it's green. Although green, you can actually measure how green something is, but these are things that at any point in space, I can say, okay, here I can measure the temperature here. I can measure the temperature here. I can measure the temperature at any point. Okay. Whereas vectors, these always have direction. So we've got density in here as well. But the ones we care about really are distance. These are the big ones in dynamics. Distance and speed. And when we convert these to vectors, these become velocity. And oh, sorry, that's displacement. Displacement and velocity. And then we also have acceleration. Okay. And these are basically form the basis of everything that we do in game engines. Because there are more of these in real life. Like there's one called jerk that comes after acceleration. And most of us never need to care about this, but if you're building roller coasters, you really have to care about this one because that's how you die. If your rate of change of acceleration is too fast, your axions split and you die. So, euthanasia coaster, which was never built, but it's just hypothetically, it's just invented. But if you are working in like the military or you're working in roller coasters, you'll have access to jerk data. Now it's actually really hard to find access to jerk data online, and it's not really available. Like that's something that that they don't want you to have. But I'm sure the military have very good data on jerk and how much jerk it takes to kill a human and all of these wonderful things. Right. So, where was I? Let's see what I was doing. Jerk, displacement. Okay, vectors. So, let's say I live in my house, which I do actually, amazingly. Mine's a 3-story house, so it's bigger than this one, but it's also, I don't have a whole house, it's the end. But whatever, you don't care about my house, right? You care that I decide to go for a walk. Or you can pretend to care at least. Right, and on this walk, which never really happens because I don't go outside, but let's say I do, right? Then I'm gonna decide to walk 2 blocks north, and then 2 blocks east, then 1 block south, and oh my god, I'm so tired. I just sit down on a bench here. I'm like, that's too much. That's too much walking, right? And you can see that here we have a vector. Right, we'll call that a vector A, we'll call that vector B, and we'll call that vector C. And I'd like to actually make a quick aside and tell you something interesting about vectors. Vectors, the difference. Okay, I've already said vectors have a direction. That's what separates them from scalars. So, a velocity is speed, but in a direction. You can have a negative velocity. You can't really have a negative speed. But one thing you might not think about is vectors don't actually have a position. Okay, vectors are just a line. If you imagine I'm moving here, and that's my vector, that's my speed, and you're moving here, that's your speed. So A and B. Well, A equals B. Even though we both started at different points, we're moving parallel to each other, our vector is the same. Okay? And you might say, well, Alex, I know a vector that's a position. Transform.position. That's a position, right? Well, even though it is a position, it's actually not a position, right? Because what transform.position is it's a direction from the origin. So in our game engines, we have a point that we call the origin, right? And that's 0, 0, 0. That's where everything starts from. And all these transformed up positions, if you decide, in Unity we use this color scheme, it goes red, green, blue. And we're also a left-handed system. That means you go up that way, up that way, up that way, like your left hand, whereas this is right-handed. And artists use right-handed, which is annoying, because we're both using the... Okay, but anyway, Unreal and Unity, you use left-handed, so everything we do, we'll keep left-handed. So Z is forward, and Y is up, because we're not crazy, but some people do love to do this way is Y, and this way is Z, because they're used to writing on a table. And on a table, you got X, Y, and then Z would be that way. But whatever, that's like, it's normally much older people will do that. But okay, this is Y, this is X, this is Z. And let me just see what I was even doing. So we've got, okay, so if you've got some position in space and you're like, okay, this is at 3, 2, 1, right? Then this vector is just a direction from the origin. So when your game loads and it's like, oh, here's all the objects. Oh, where's this relative to the origin? Where's this relative to the origin? Where's this relative to the origin? So it's not got a position attached to it. Okay, so we have these 3 vectors, and we can get scalars out of these. So this vector, I'm sure you'd agree, is 0, 2. Or maybe you don't agree with that, but feel free to argue your case if you disagree. This is, so, that's X, that's Y. I'm assuming you all know that, right? But if you don't, feel free to unmute and be like, I don't know that, teach me. If at any point I'm going too fast or you don't know what I'm doing, feel free to just cut in and say, please help. This one you're going 2, 0, and this one you're going 0, -1. Now, if we add, right, each of these vectors has a magnitude, and the magnitude is just how long the vector is. Okay, they have a direction and a magnitude. So I think you agree, we can easily see that the magnitude of this vector is 2. The magnitude of this vector is 2. And the magnitude of this vector, even though it's -1, is 1. It's always positive, It's always a positive number, right? And these vectors, so they add, 2 plus 2 plus 1 is 5, and that's the distance we've traveled, right? And that's our scalar distance. Now, we can also look at the vector that we've made, and the vector is called our displacement. And the vector doesn't care how far we went, it just cares where we've ended up, where we are now relative to home. In fact, if we went in a full square, our displacement, we wouldn't have moved at all. So we can add these 3 vectors together, A, B, and C, and you'll see that they add up to D. So, we've got 0, 2, add that to 2, 0, add that to 0, -1, and you'll get, 2, 1, right? And that's vector D, right? And vector D has, we found it. A magnitude, right? This, and it has a direction, which is also this, but it's just the way it goes, And so if this is 2 and 1, it's really easy to find this line, right? Because we all remember Pythagoras' theorem. Okay, this is in English. I don't know if you know, that's the hypotenuse, right? So we can call that, you know, ABC, and a squared is b squared plus c squared, or you know, done it the wrong way around, but whatever. So in this case, we've got 2 squared plus 1 squared. That gives us 5. So this vector is root 5, which is 2.24-ish. Something like that. I don't know. It'll be roughly around there. Now, that gives us the magnitude of that vector. And we can find that out from any, if we got, you know, 4 dimensions, then we're going to have x squared plus y squared plus z squared plus w squared. And that will give us our magnitude, right? And then the other property a vector has is its direction. And we can easily calculate the direction of something. Right. Directions use this thing called a unit vector. So we have a circle. Okay. And the circle has a radius of 1. So here, this is 1, 0. This is 0, 1. Right? So even if we've got a vector where you go 30, you know, if you decide I'm going to go 30 meters per second, that's a magnitude of 30 and a vector of 1, 0. And the way you work this out, which you'll never really have to do in a game engine because you just type in the function name, but which I'll give you in a sec. But what you do is you take each one of the x, y, and z, and you divide it by x squared plus y squared plus z squared. You divide it by the magnitude. We'll just call that mag because it makes it less confusing looking. You know, we take x over mag, y over mag, z over mag, and that gives you the direction. So for instance, if we go in a straight diagonal line this way, you know, it doesn't matter if we move 1, 2, 3, 4, the direction's always going to be the same. It's going to be this point on a circle, right? And it's not going to be 1, 1. The whole thing's going to add up to 1, because if if you've got 1, 1, that's going to add up to root 2. You know, it's going to be root 1 squared plus 1 squared. And that's 1.41. So it's too big, right? So what you're actually going to get is 0.707, which happens to be root 2 over 2. Yeah, look, I'll just show you. You've got, you've got 1, 1, 1 squared plus 1 squared, square root that up, you got root 2, and then you divide each element. So you got 1 divided by root 2, 1 divided by root 2. And that's the same as root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. If you don't believe me, easy way to put it is, root 9 over 9 is the same as 1 over root 9, right? 3 over 9 is a third. This is the same thing, right? And what it means is that basically when you put this on a circle, this point is 0.707 and 0.707, and you'll see this number a lot. And I want you to. The only reason why I'm going on this big detour of telling you talking specifically about this, you're gonna see this number a lot when you mess around with physics, because we just happen to move things at 45 degrees a lot, and you know, when cos theta equals sine theta, that's it's pi over 4 or 45 degrees, right? That thing is root 2 over 2. It's 0.707. So you'll see this a lot, right? So if I've built a little example. Let's see how we are for time. We've done 30 minutes. Okay, we've got 20 minutes. Right. this is a little car thing I've made, right? And this car's moving round and round, and you'll see that at every point, you can. Well, let me go back to the whiteboard. You've got your little car, and your car has a speed, and the speed is the same. And if we look here, our speed is 3.77. Right, and I'll give you the file for this afterwards so you can have a little look at it. Right, but this car, it has a speed of 0. What was that? 3.77. Okay. Right, and you'll see at this point of the circle, you're going to be at 0, 3.77. Oh my god, I can't write. Here is 3.77, 0. Here it's 0 minus 3.77. Here it's minus 3.770. Right? At any point on the circle, you can draw off a line, a tangent, and that will have its x component and its y component. Right? And you'll see if at the corners, it's gonna have, it's gonna basically be this 0.707 multiplied by 3.77. So if we look, that's about 2.66. If we pause this when it goes into a corner, oh my god, zoom's in the way. Oh, I can just press Control B. Oh no, I can't. That's the okay. We'll just move it down. Right. Okay, you see that when I get in the corner and the values are almost equal, you see it's about 0.266, right? So at every point, you can split this up into its two components, x and y, and we'll need that later when we're talking about like normals and stuff like that. But for now, it's enough to know that you've got these things. You've got the x component, the y component, and they're going to be equal to your vector. Say this is your magnitude, it's the x is going to be mag cos theta, and your y is going to be mag sin theta. Okay? And so if it's really small, cos theta starts up here. You should know this, by the way, it's really useful. Cos theta starts here at 1, sine starts at 0. So here, when the angle is really small, it's going to be 1. So your x is just going to be mag times 1, and your y is going to be 0 here. Do you see? Does that make sense to anyone? I'm not. I hope I don't lose you at the trigonometry part, because I bet people get confused by trig. But trigonometry is a very beautiful, useful tool, and especially if you know. One of the most useful things you can ever learn is just to know that that's cos and that's okay. I can't draw. Look at that. That's so bad. Right. And that's sine. I can't draw it. And where they overlap, is pi over 4, and pi. Pi over 2. Pi over here is 2 pi. Once it does a loop, that's 2 pi. And I'm going to show you why that's useful. I'm going to teach it to you over the course of the coming weeks. Controllers. Controllers are cool, right? Here's a new Xbox controller and the new PlayStation. This is way less impressive now that they're out. But before they weren't out, right? So you've got sticks, right? Controllers have sticks. Something you should know about video games. It would help if you all have a controller, by the way. It's not required for this course, but it would certainly help, and I'd advise if you manage to get to your masters without owning a controller, you should probably You should probably get a controller. It helps you make games. Okay, you've got your thing. There's the look at that drawing, so good. Here's the D-pad. Oh, amazing drawing. Right, you've got a joystick, and this joystick has two little things on them. If you've ever opened up a controller because you feel like messing with your money, you'll see they have two little devices strapped to them. These are potentiometers, and a potentiometer detects how much how hard something is pushing down, and these have little switches basically like this. It can go to there and it can go to there, and so it push down on here more or less. Right, and when the control stick's tipped this way, then it's like it's all the way down, and when the control stick's tipped this way, it's like up. It's like a seesaw, right? Okay, sorry, that's all the way down. But when it's this way, it's going to be like that, and that's all the way up, right? And this little device detects the how hard down it is, and it reads off a value, and it reads off a value from -1 to 1 in X, and the other one, there's two of them. The other one reads -1 to 1 in Y. Now, they don't actually always do that. That's a problem in video games. There's plenty of problems in video games about Joy-Con drift. I don't know if any of you had that with your Nintendo Switches, but controllers are fallible. Now, there was a very beautiful, once upon a time, amazing controller called the GameCube controller, and the GameCube controller is very interesting because it has this grid, right? It's like it's like that's bad drawing. That's never gonna work. Oh, it started off so well, and it became bad. Okay, but it essentially looks like this. So you can draw a star, and then join the points up. Oh, that's a much better way of doing it. If I was a talented artist, right? And it snaps them into place, right? And these newfangled controllers don't do that. They don't. You don't lock into place, right? And these did still have their problems. Sometimes these wouldn't read off 1. It'd read off 0.99 or something. And this is a big problem if you play competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. Because if this person's controller reads it reads 1, and this person's controller reads 0.98, and they're chasing you across the stage, you're like, run away, he's lasering me, pew, pew, pew. Then you're going to run slower, and this person's going to get you. It's this very small difference, but it can make all the difference. So they added hacks to the game and stuff to try and mod it and fix that. Developers should think of this because, for instance, in my game, if you're using the D-pad, you're always going to get a value of 1, right? And these are vectors, That's why we did vectors. And these are normalized vectors, right? Because they go from -1 to 1. Just like a real vector, right? Well, they're actually not normalized, because if you only put it down 0.1, then it's never mind. It's not normalized, right? But if it's all the way down, it's actually normalized because it's a circle. But what happens is if you've got speedrunners in your game and they want to go fast, Sonic, go fast, right? Then they want a value of 1 when they put the stick right. But no one. Okay, if I try and draw, I'm going to draw some straight lines here. Watch this. Watch my straight line. Okay, I'll try and draw another straight line. Okay, do you see I'm not drawing straight lines because I'm a human, and humans are idiots, and we don't draw straight lines. It doesn't work like that. So when you draw a line, like when you push your thumb down, it doesn't go right. It goes like, oh my god. This is, sometimes computers are idiots too. Okay, so it will go somewhere here, You're not going to get it all the way on the right. You're going to get it somewhere on here. And another problem is, sometimes your stick it won't return to 0. It will return to like 0.1 or something. So what they do is they add a dead zone, and you can add your own dead zone. A dead zone is a bit in the middle where you don't read it. You're not reading input. And over here, you can add like this magic zone. I don't know what you'd even call this, but we're calling it the magic zone from now on. Right? And you can say, okay, I'm reading all the values in this arc as 1. These are 1 now. Everything from here to here is 1. Okay? And everything from here is 0. And this is 0. So if we imagine we try and draw what this would look like, you know, normally a stick looks like this, right? It's just it just goes up. This is the X, right? In the middle here, this is here. And then if you go all the way to the end, it reads a value of 1. But if we had a dead zone, then this bit is going to go away, right? This bit's going to read 0 for the whole thing. So this bit's gone, you know? So it's just going to go like 0, and then suddenly it's going to have this value. And then if we had this blue zone, I hope you're all understanding me here and I don't sound like a lunatic, but if we had this blue zone and it suddenly goes to 1 here, then it's going to look like this. It's going to suddenly be at 1, right? And so the input is going to look like this. Nothing, 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 nothing. Oh, normal values, normal values, normal values. 1. Suddenly. And it's going to feel bad. So what you can do is actually take the input and go from here to here. Is this making any sense? Anyone want to weigh in on whether that makes any?
Start at the bottom.
Well, okay, well, so from now on, well, right now, okay, yeah, you the new one, you want it to essentially as soon as you hit this point, which is like here on the graph, yeah, you want it to start here. Sorry, you're right. Yeah, very good. Thank you for correcting me. Right. You really, we want the line to look like this. And if you're making like a first-person shooter, you actually don't even want that. You want it to maybe be a curve, because you want it that if you press it a small amount, you only turn a small amount. I'll let undo. I'll draw it with that tool, so it looks less stupid. Okay. So, and how you can do this is by grabbing your vector, and you can get your input, you can, well, it'd be input dot get axis horizontal, and that horizontal axis, we'll just call it V. Oh no, we'll call it I because that's a less stupid name. Okay, vector 3I is this horizontal axis, right? If you take this, you can grab the magnitude of it, and that will tell you how much it was before, and then you can grab the normalized position of it, and that will tell you which direction it's going in, right? And then you can just do some magic and make it go from 0.1 to, well, make it go from 0 to 1, even though it's not. Without, do you get what I'm saying? And what I'm essentially saying is, go try that. Go and do that. It's not that hard. Go and read a stick and see if you can get your value to have a little dead zone. See if you can add a dead zone to the stick and see if you can make it so all values. So essentially, right, what I'm asking you is, all values above 0.9 will become 1. All values below 0.1 will become 0. And then all values from 0.1 to 0.9, oh my god, where did that 9 come from? Did I just write a 9? That's crazy. 0.1 to 0.9 become from 0 to 1. Right? this is what I would do if you want to do a 2D project. If you want to do a 3D project, which you're free to do if you prefer 3D, what I'd like you to do is just make it so that it's like an FPS. You've got a curve to your line. So when you push it down a little, your character's moving slower. And there's this magic thing called square roots and squaring numbers, and that might help you figure out how to do that. But essentially, both of these things will let you fiddle about with the joy of vectors and normalizing and magnitudes. And yeah, so see if you can. Just see if you can. Okay, and you know what I'll do as well to make things clearer. I'll upload a little project file for you. I'll go write that after this lecture immediately afterwards, and I'll also upload this car for you so you can look at the car. Oh, and one thing I didn't show as well with the car, this is cool. I added you can change the frequency. Ooh, we'll go into this stuff later on the amplitude, and I added it so you can add drift. Look at that. Wait, let's make it go slower so you can appreciate the. I called it Tokyo drift.